It's time for the VolQuest Mailbag Podcast, answering your questions from the General's quarters every week, right here on VolQuest.
Good Thursday, everybody, and welcome into the Smoky Mountain Organics VolQuest Mailbag Podcast. Again, brought to you by Smoky Mountain Organics, East Tennessee's most trusted health and wellness store, focusing on natural products and organic remedies. 3 locations located in East Tennessee and one right here in Knoxville. That's at 8018 Kingston Pike. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, subscribe, follow us there, and of course, the front page of VolQuest.com and the General Quarters. Got a lot going on. Got plenty of submissions for this edition of the Mailbag Podcast. Austin Price, Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis. I'm Eric Kane. We'll start with CD Vol. Your thoughts on Greg Sankey wanting to expand the NCAA basketball tournament? I think it's a terrible idea. There is nothing wrong with the tournament in its current format. Rob Lewis, why don't you kick us off here?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm 68 with the playing games. I think it's hard to improve upon, and really how many. I mean, there's always a couple of storylines every year about, this bubble team or that bubble team got left out, but really how many ultra deserving teams are sitting at home every year in March, and and that's part of it. I mean, the race to get in, the pressure to get in, and I think you water it down a little bit if you expand it past where it is now.
Yeah, I like the fact that there are teams left out. Then there's the euphoria of the teams that weren't sure and then got in. At that point, you're just basically everybody's getting in, and that some team that may get left home potentially could win a couple of games and get to the third round. But at the same time, I mean, they had every chance to do that in the regular season. So I'm with Rob. I think you leave it the way it is, and it just makes it more special. I mean, it makes it more special if you're able to get in.
Yeah, and the one thing that I can kind of see it is those mid-major teams that have fantastic years, and it's a one-bid league. If you don't win your conference tournament, you're not getting in. You dominated your league all year, and you slip up in the first weekend in March. But the conferences themselves can fix that if they want to. I mean, that's not an NCAA rule. They're giving those bids they've chosen to give those automatic bids to the tournament champion, and it's within their power to, alleviate that if they want to.
I mean, it's kind of like when Bassmaster Ball asks like a 12-part question. When Hubbs answers it, he feels special that Hubbs took the time to answer.
That's so weak. That's so terrible. The point is
not as terrible as your wing ding joke on the other day.
That's because you weren't paying attention. You didn't get it. So you were looking at somebody walking across the complex there while we were taping that. I don't see the point in devaluing the regular season. I think you have attendance concerns as it is. Why devalue the regular season? In terms of the mid-major deal, there's a part of me that thinks the tournament's too big because the Power 5 conference tournaments are pointless. There's no point in playing those things at this point because they don't put any value in it. But championship week with those mid-major conferences that are getting one bid and it goes to that tournament champion, I mean, there's a lot of drama. That's good. That's good. That's a good product. That's, that captivates an audience. I think the more you add to it, the more you weaken the regular season, and I think that's a concern in basketball as it is when you talk about trying to get fans in the stands from November to the tournament starts in March.
We'll go down to recruiting. Austin Price. This is from the Baron A. Fanis. Who are the top 5 targets out there right now that can be committed or uncommitted?
Top 5 targets that are committed or uncommitted?
Yeah, I mean, they could be committed or who are the top 5 targets Tennessee's after right now? Committed or uncommitted?
Well, committed to other schools, yeah, AP. Yeah.
Okay.
That Tennessee would swing after.
David Hobbs, Bison Lang. I'm going to go Lucas Simmons just because they need another tackle, and you can't hang everything on Bison Lang. Kildrick Falk. And I'll go Roderick
Robinson.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's just not many names. Now, here's what's about to happen. Tennessee's board is small right now. It's going to grow the next 3-4 weeks. It's going to get bigger. You're going to see more names because the high school football season starts this week in some states, next week in others, and 2 weeks from now in others. But you're going to see these first 2, 3, 4 games where all these schools go, ooh, senior film. who's grown, who didn't go to camp this summer, who we missed out on. And then they're going to go, oh, this guy I really like. Oh, this guy, not so much, so on and so forth. So I think the number of names that we're talking about come Florida week and the number of names we talk about now are going to drastically change.
Austin, here, I'll ask it this way as a follow-up to his question. If you're going to take five, say you're going to take five more guys, I know you can take more than that depending on where you're at with the 85. Position of need, is it defensive tackle, then offensive tackle?
Yes, and then maybe best available, and then
best available. Okay, so running back, if there's a great running back available, you would take that, but not necessarily the top priority there. Priority being offensive tackle, defensive tackle, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, okay. I just think Tennessee, like Darnell Wright's not going to be on this football team a year from now. Even though he's young enough to where he could be, and it wouldn't really affect him long term. I just think he's going to play this year, play well enough. He's going to go to the draft. So you need more tackles. I think that Tennessee will probably look to the portal for that need. But I think when you're talking about just straight high school kids, yeah, defensive tackle, offensive tackle, and then just best available. And if they could get a Roderick Robinson, they sure would take him. They're not going to just take him back to take him back.
Okay.
We'll go now to Vol in SC. What changes would you like to see made to simplify and help prevent staff and recruiting personnel burnout, which is chasing some coaches out of the college game? He goes on to say, he mentions a couple of different scenarios, maybe like an Olympic sports model where kids can camp, but don't have the ability to commit or even get an offer until their junior year. But any changes in the recruiting calendar or kind of how they go about that you'd like to see made? Brent, we'll go with you.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I think the early signing date has done nothing but add 2 or 3 months to the recruiting calendar because you brought official visits into play in the spring, and June's become the month of committed, making commitments with the one-time transfer rule. Rob, you've got to recruit your current roster every year to try to keep them intact. Then you've got the NIL money on top of that. I don't know what you do to the calendar. I mean, aside from just completely blowing it up and starting, completely over, I don't know what you do with the calendar. I don't think you can say you can't. You got rules in place now where you can't formally offer until, a certain date via the letter, but you can verbally offer a kid as early as you want to do. So that's not going to stop anything that way. I don't know the answer to this question, but I think it's a real concern.
There's no answer. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube on how because the verbal offer is what everybody goes off anyways. I mean, the whole July 1st, August 1st, September 1st, all those dates that, you can start making calls with seniors or officially offer a kid or whatever. Like all that's just window dressing. I mean, that's not really a real thing. Like they send out a graphic, the kid tweets it out, but the kid's known he's had an offer for a year and a half or 6 months or 2 months or 2 weeks, whatever, before that date gets here. To stop coaching burnout, I think you're going to have to reform on NIL because it is so the wild, wild west. I mean, it's really out of control. I mean, it's out of control with the money / there's nobody actually representing these kids in most instances. So it's a guessing game, and you're having to play a little cat and mouse. And I mean, I just think ultimately, and then you got the, schools that are going out there and they're having their own players kind of try to cherry pick players from other schools. That's what's going to drive these coaches out. It's like just no matter what, there's always something coming up. Every day it's an issue with one of these kids about this stuff.
We'll go to Robo 22.
Here's the other thing too. I would wonder, and I don't know that this helps. And Rob, anybody can chime in here. Just eliminate the February signing date. Just eliminate and make January and February dead. You go out for spring evaluations. You got January. You basically have from signing day in December through till spring evaluations when you get out on the road in March is dead in terms of seeing people or going out on the road. And then you've got that window in July. It doesn't stop recruiting because you're always making phone calls, Rob, but at least it keeps you at home for another few weeks. I just, I don't think the January deal is, quote, you're getting ahead on future classes. but I don't think that's any different than going out and seeing guys in a spring evaluation period.
Yeah, I mean, for the sake of coaches, I think that makes all the sense in the world. I just don't see it happening. I mean, I'm like AT. I don't see him walking anything back.
Well, my thing is that you have to have 2 signing dates. I don't think you can just do December because
Why?
Because I think certain kids are not going to be able to fit in academically into that December window. And so I think what you're going to have is a certain number of kids that, that need that February window. So I'm not saying that you have to keep February cover. I'm saying maybe you do like an April, like almost like basketball, like do an April deal where they go out, they see you, in January, and you do like an April deal instead of
then you got to recruit them 3 more months. I mean, I think you can do a December only. I mean, even the most academic risk guys are signing in December. If your academic counselors are putting guys on track, I mean, James Pierce was one of those, right? I mean, they had a track. I mean, Tennessee did a good job with his academic plan to get him to where they felt comfortable he was going to qualify, so they went ahead and signed him in December. They didn't wait and see what his transcript looked like in January to sign him. I just don't think there's enough kids signing in February to justify. I mean, nobody's going out. All they're doing is maybe babysitting 2 guys in January, and the rest of the time is going by all these high school to see, whatever the next 2-year cycle is. That's all that January is accomplishing now. It's basically extending the spring evaluation period into the winter. Is what I see out of the January, the month of January at this point in recruiting. But that's just my opinion. I don't think they'll change it. And again, you got to still talk to kids on the phone. But during that time, you're dealing with transfer issues with your own team. You're babysitting 2 guys who might not have signed because of NIL stuff. And then you're spending all your time going and looking at guys 2 years down the road, which I think you can do in the springtime.
Let's now go to Robo 22. We know this offense can get people open, especially on the outside. I'm curious if you 5 are expecting to see any new wrinkles in this offense. Brent, I know we've talked about this a lot over the offense on the pod. Something to get the running backs, tight ends more involved in the passing game, get out more in space. Can we expect to see these speedy new additions in some fun misdirectional plays to use that speed as an advantage?
Look, if this team's better in short yardage and they're better in the red zone, then that's the 2 areas where they need to improve. They didn't have any trouble with explosive plays. They didn't have to gimmick anybody up and run crazy misdirection stuff. I think Hooker will be better in the middle of the field, so the tight ends will be a little bit more involved. But I mean, other than not getting 3rd and short converted, Eric, and maybe not finishing some in the red zone, I mean, their offense was as dynamic and as explosive as any offense in the country.
Yeah, I mean, it was a top 10 offense last year. You had a quarterback that was top 5 in quarterback rating, beat out the Heisman Trophy winning Bryce Young in terms of quarterback rating. So I understand where you're getting at, but the offense is pretty unique as it was. This kind of leads me in now. Let's flip over to defense. Another question from Bra JP Minion. Do you believe that 3rd down defense will be the difference between 8-4, 10-2? If so, how confident are you? And then he goes into some different scenarios. More importantly, 3rd down defense. It was atrocious last year. Tennessee was one of the nation leaders in tackles for loss, got them in 3rd and mid or 3rd and long, and then gave up a 3rd down. I think that for Tennessee to take a step, regardless if that's another win on the schedule, 2 wins, whatever it is, you've got to improve red zone, like you mentioned, but also on 3rd down defense. That's just a must, wouldn't you say, Austin Price?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you have to. You just hope you're better. I mean, what's better? I mean, fractionally better, marginally better. I don't see them being drastically better, but I mean, can you just improve on what you did a year ago, which is be able to get off the field, be able to, get your offense back out there and save your own legs. And so it kind of works, twofold, Hubbard. Tennessee needs to be better on 3rd down offensively, and they need to be better on 3rd down defensively, and both help the defense.
Got to get to the quarterback, plain and simple. If you want to be better on 3rd down defense, you got to get to the quarterback, Rob Lewis.
Without bringing the house.
I mean, that's my biggest thing. Yeah, you got to. Go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
I'm going to say I'm cheating because I looked this up or something the other day, and so I know this. Tennessee forced opponents into more 3rd downs than any other team in the SEC except for Georgia, but then they also gave up more third down conversions than any team in the SEC. And the only team worse at getting off the field was Missouri. I think Tennessee was 42%. Missouri was 43 or 44% in allowing conversions, and that's just a big number.
Yep.
And Georgia played 2 more games. Georgia's stats, those 239 third downs faced in 15 games. Tennessee faced 216 in 13 games.
I mean, it could be the difference in a win or two. There's no doubt. I mean, I think that is the biggest step that has to be made for this program is can they get off the field in third and obvious situations. Last year when it was third and obvious, to get there, Tennessee still had to bring pressure, which opened them up for big plays. And, because it put them in man-to-man situations in the back end, and they couldn't disguise a whole lot. Mike Eckler's talking up those Leos, this week. Can those guys get to the quarterback? That's the $1,000,000 question.
But you got Eckler, who's uber positive. Then you got Rodney, who's,
Eeyore
dumps at all times. I mean, like
it's why he and I are boys, right, AP?
Can you imagine those two in a room, like discussing it? I think he's a first rounder. And he's not going to be drafted.
Can you imagine? Just not even football. Can you imagine like disgusting traffic? Oh man, it's going to take us 4 hours to get there if we go that way. There's no way we're going to make it.
And the funny thing about it is they are literally in the same meeting room every single day, coaching the same position group. So that is so funny. I like to be a fly on the wall watching that as well. Let's go to Athrun. A couple of recruiting questions here. Can you explain how LSU bungled the Matthews recruitment twice? Glad we got him. Just curious. AP, I know LSU can always be a factor, and it still will be down to signing day. But I mean, this was Tennessee, Texas with Matthews.
Yeah, I mean, LSU's not in it. They haven't been in it. They continue to call, and their phone calls are greeted with a classy response, but Jordan's doing his own thing. So for me, like they screwed up out of the gate. They were slow, and then I just don't think that they handled things the right way. Hey, that happens here. That happens everywhere. Like, I mean, recruiting home state kids is really hard because home state's kids are more apt to jump in the boat, even if it's not maybe what it was 15 or 20 years ago. And then they tend to penalize you. Georgia's about the only state where that really doesn't. The kids don't penalize you in that state as bad. Alabama's probably a close second for being slow to offer.
Yeah, and when you're going through a coaching change, sometimes that makes it really hard, right? I mean, you look at Josh Heupel's arrival at Tennessee. That was a really good class. They swung on some guys, didn't get them, couldn't get in the door with some of them. Yep. Didn't call quick enough on some others. In some people's opinions, you got the same thing going on in Baton Rouge. I mean, Brian Kelly's sitting there trying to put a class together. Well, where's he going to go? He's going to go with guys he's talked to. He's going to go to schools where he's got relationships with, and he didn't have a whole bunch of relationships with people in Baton Rouge. Now, what's interesting is the head coach is an LSU guy, and former LSU quarterback and Marcus Randall. But, I think LSU was working on other relationships they had out of the state when they first got there, and it put them behind with Jordan Matthews, and they couldn't play catch up.
Another question here, AP, and this might be impossible to answer right now, but any prospects, the staff that you know of, are waiting to see some senior film on?
I mean, I think Traylon Ray. I mean, Tennessee's recruiting him. They're planning on bringing him in for the Alabama game. If he comes out of the gates gangbusters, they may up that, to the Florida game. And why not? I mean, you have a much better chance to beat the Gators than you probably do Alabama at this point. It just makes sense to, kind of take a wait and see approach. But that's kind of where I think Tennessee is. I mean, I think Tennessee will be, watching game film on a couple of guys, just to kind of see how they do. But Traylon Ray would be right there at the top for me.
Another question, anything to worry about the players who are off working to the side and no pads at practice, or is it just maintenance related stuff to keep them healthy for the season? I can answer this, and please jump in if y'all want to. I mean, a lot of it's precaution. A lot of it is maintenance. I mean, there's just no, especially with older guys, there's just no sense in, this was practice 14 yesterday. You are 14 days away from kickoff. So those Latrell Bumpus, those, some of these older guys, no sense of being out there every single day when you don't have to. Jabari Small not practicing a whole lot in the scrimmage the other day, just kind of stuff like that. But obviously, Brent, there are some guys who've been banged up a little bit. Jalen Wright slowly working back in. There's a lot more red jerseys coming off scrimmage number 2. I think a lot of it, they're just trying to play it safe and make sure everybody's healthy for week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jalen Wright's a guy that they're being overly cautious with in hopes to have him ready to be 100% at Pitt. I don't know what he'll do in week 1 or won't do in week 1. We'll see. He's going to go into week 1 without any contact. Of all those guys out there, I think Kamal Hadden, just because it's taken him a while to get back, that would be a little bit of exactly where is he. And then I think you throw Elijah Simmons in there as well, because Elijah Simmons is a guy that seems to be slow to heal. So we'll see what happens with that. But a lot of those other guys are just maintenance guys that they're going to continue to not take any chances on at this point because of either previous injuries, or they just don't have enough depth behind them that they feel great about. They don't feel like they can take that chance there.
And I will say, I think if the head coach is mentioning your name specifically that you need to get on the practice field, that probably is a different deal, like you did with Jimmy Callaway earlier this week and Squirrel White. And Squirrel White was back out there, without the red jersey today.
Yeah, Squirrel White was back out there on Wednesday, and at least from Kamal Hadden and Elijah Simmons, they've been back this week. They've been, at least while we're there, doing everything, individual, dressed out in full pads. And Jalen Wright continues to get some more work in with the running backs and individual. The Daily Brew question, any update on Brew's eligibility at this point in time?
Nope.
No.
Nope. Are the coaches any more optimistic? Say what?
The earth is getting bigger in the window.
It really is. Are the coaches more optimistic Bru McCoy will be eligible at Pittsburgh game or by the Alabama game? Is it one of those where this could linger on in the season? It doesn't necessarily have to be week 1. Any talk about that?
I think it's all or nothing. It's just how it feels to me. I mean, again, you have 2 different routes here, Hubbard. SC's got to dot I's and cross T's on their end. I don't know why it's taking so long. You have another option to file an appeal with the NCAA. Now, that would be something where like it could happen 2 or 3 games in. But as far as the SC route, I think it's kind of all or nothing. I don't think they're going to magically dot the I's and cross the T's 3 games in. To me, it's either before the season or they're not doing it and you're having to try to win that appeal.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
We'll go to Pounding Thrill, a recruiting question incorporated with name, image, likeness now. Rob and AP can take this one. With NIL deals becoming more commonplace, should we expect to see less flips in commitments? Or is that something that leading up to signing day, I still feel like it's going to be as crazy as ever?
No, I think, you're going to see, if anything, it would be the opposite, right? I mean, you have schools that come in there and throw a new NIL deal at player X, Y, or Z, and, going to make it tough for that kid to say no, or, then that kid, is likely going back to whatever school he's committed to saying, hey, this school's coming with me with this, you're going to have to up the deal.
Yeah, I agree. And it's because in rare exceptions, except for the few, there's a handful of states where those NIL deals can take effect while the kid's still in high school. But in the vast majority of cases, you got an NIL deal in theory. You haven't started reaping the rewards
until you get here.
Until you get here. So yeah, just like AP said, it leaves a window for somebody else to come in there and meet, match, or up whatever the NIL deal on the table is.
Brent Hubbs, Sam Smith, 22-33 outside of Jabari Small. Who else does this staff trust the most in terms of pass protection? I feel like that's just going to be something that's worked on every single day, because I don't feel like it's a great trust right now, but that could change as the weeks go by.
Well, look, where you're at outside of Small right now is 2 freshmen who've never done it before. Mm-hmm. That's where you're at in the running back room. So, do they have full trust in Dylan Sampson, who's been on campus 2.5 months? No. Do they have trust in Justin Williams-Thomas? Probably not at this point, although he's been here longer. That trust is going to have to be earned, and the only way that's going to happen is they're going to go out there and play. I think that's a concern there. That you have the same concern at the tight end position if you're not playing Jacob Warren or Princeton Fant. That's why they're not going to take any chances with Jacob Warren here down the stretch of camp. He's a little banged up. They're not going to take any chances because, when you talk about concerns and the explosiveness of this offense, if you're not sure exactly what you're going to get at left tackle, you're going to have to slide protection to help to that side. Okay, well, then you got two tight ends you trust, but if they're not in the game, who are you going to slide over there to help? If you don't have Jabari Small in the game, and I guess Jalen Wright knows what to do, but he was not very good at it a year ago. Where are you going to slide? How are you going to slide over and get some help with those guys? So I just think there's going to be some growing pains there. That's why Hendon Hooker's legs are going to be important, and I think getting the ball out of his hands is going to be important until those guys get better in pass pro. Jerry Mack works it every single day. And he talked about it earlier this week. He feels like those freshmen know where to look. They know what they're supposed to be seeing, but they've got to get all the fundamentals down so that they can handle the contact that comes, with a blitzing linebacker or a twist with a big defensive end or a big defensive tackle, all those types of things they never really had to encounter or deal with in high school.
Couple of recruiting ones, one more from Sam Smith. Should Tennessee expect to go try to find a running back in the transfer portal market this year? I would assume that they're going to be looking, Austin.
Yeah, even if you get Roderick Robinson, I think you're going to end up, going that route because you don't have enough bodies in the room, Hubbard. I mean, I know it feels like it at times. They have plenty of bodies, but I mean, again, this is the same team that last year against Ole Miss gave Marcus Pierce legitimate carries, a walk-on in that close football game. And I mean, that's no knock on Marcus Pierce. He was a walk-on for a reason. You just need more scholarship guys, which is hard because in today's world of college football, nobody wants to sit there and be options 3, 4, 5. That makes it really hard. I mean, it'll be fascinating to watch just all the jockeying across college football because you're going to see it more and more and more. The kids just don't want to sit there.
I think, Robin, maybe I'm wrong with this, but I think that position is going to be – there's going to be more movement at that position or as much movement at that position as any in college football in the transfer market. And I think there's going to be more contributing type players available in the transfer portal because they're just – I mean, those guys aren't – it's kind of like the NFL. I mean, you can find a guy in the NFL in the 4th or 5th round who can be a really good player for you. I think you're going to be able to find a guy from a smaller school or from somewhere else, a guy who was in a bit of a log jam, who maybe is not the 5-star guy, but he's going to be able to be a good player for you. I think there's going to be a lot of those guys available, and I think you're going to see a lot of movement out of that position around the country every year.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and because of the nature of the position, I mean, you see a lot of injuries there where depth gets tested, but I mean, how many teams are really spreading the burden around to 3 guys? So I mean, if you've got 5 scholarship running backs on the roster, and 4 and 5 are pretty good players, how motivated are they going to be to sit around and wait until they're a junior before maybe they're the guy when they can go somewhere? And and I kind of think that's anywhere you go, you have to learn the offense, but that is kind of a plug and play position. I mean, if you're in the spring, if you're there in the spring and you're talented and gifted, I mean, it's not like that position success is so much about just instinct, I think, and God-given ability.
Joey Mack, 85-81, wants to know Devin Hyatt. Any chance there, AP?
They'll evaluate his senior film. I mean, I think that's the best thing Devin can do is just go out and ball. I mean, the more he goes out and plays well, the more, attention he's going to get, from all schools.
I know you mentioned Mario Craver in the war room last week, Austin, but any more 2024s other than him, traction with Tennessee right now? Anything heating up there?
No, not really. I mean, nothing imminent. I mean, I think Tennessee's done a nice job with some 24s, getting them to campus, whether it be for camp or for, the function there at the end of July. But, I don't think anybody's real imminent.
Brooks 1972 has some eligibility questions in terms of how many more years left or some people to save everybody some trouble. Brooks, Joe Milton this year and next year. This is it for Juwan Mitchell. Lynn J. Dixon has 2 more years. Tyler Barron has 2 more years counting this one. Warren Burrell has 2 more years counting this one as well. Deshaun 13. Tennessee's class has top-tier talent with several top 100 players. Florida has 18 4-stars, mainly ranked between 150 and 300. What type of class would you rather have? Anyone?
One
one
where,
with
but one. Go ahead, AP. I think we're going to say something.
the one with the better quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean the one where the guys hit. I mean, I've seen. I mean, the number of 4 stars that come through that don't make it. I mean, listen. I understand the star system and I understand the attraction, all that. I'm not saying that Florida's going to whiff on half of their 18 4 stars or whatever the case may be, but it's about meeting your needs and your evaluations better be right as an individual school, as an individual coaching staff. So I don't know that there is an answer to that. I think it's more about meeting your needs. You better have a quarterback, Rob, and you better win in the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and we've been doing this so long, however. I mean, we've seen so many bust, and on the flip side, so many 3 stars, turn into NFL players like, Cam Sutton or Ramon Foster. And on the flip side, Jonathan Kongbo or Chris Donald or Kenny O'Neill or, getting in the Wayback Machine, OJ
Adam
Owens.
Myers-White.
Just, I mean, I know that, people point to the NFL draft and say, the stars do matter, but man, there's an awful lot of bust and an awful lot of misses, going the other way, kids that were underranked.
Well, I think there's a portion of the fan base that's going to go, well, if we're not recruiting with Alabama, Georgia, but Tennessee's not at that spot right yet, and so you have to, as Hub said, hit on your evaluations. Look at that Jeremy's last class. How many of them are even here?
And how many of those were 4-star guys?
Yeah, correct. Look at Cody Brown was a 4-star, and everybody raved and just went bananas about Cody Brown. Cody Brown, to my knowledge, is still in the portal, and he left Miami. Maybe he's landed somewhere, and I just hadn't seen it. But Harrison Bailey was, Mr. 5-star. Now, again, I think killed him late when he won the state title and they bumped him. But even then, let's say he's a high 4-star. He's at UNLV. Is he going to win that job? I don't keep up with the running Rebels. But, there's plenty of instances like that. And then there are other guys. Jabari Small was a 3-star. And Jabari Small is a pretty good little player. And, there are several other guys just like that. Like I told somebody, whether it's on the board or on Twitter or whatever, a few months ago, a lot of the guys you were rooting for are 3-stars. A lot of the guys that make Tennessee go are 3-stars, including the quarterback.
Want to get to a couple more here. We just got a couple of minutes left. Vols 10-24 and a couple others here on this forum. AP, any smoke around a decommitment with Francis? Couple of guys are asking about that.
Yeah, I put this on the board. I talked to Francis. He said no. Could he be lying? Sure. No prerogative, and he don't have to tell me anything. But I did reach out to him to see if anything was there. He said he had saw what Corey Bender had posted, and said it was not right. So take him for what it's worth. Again, could be wrong. It could end up being out on the market. If he ends up back on the market, Tennessee will have interest, but so will a lot of schools. So all that does is reopen the can of worms.
Pine MT wants to know, Rob Lewis, could this be a mid-level SEC defense, yes or no?
I think yes, but I also think that's the ceiling. You're talking about a defense that was, I think, 12th in the SEC and total yards per game. They were dead last in passing yards per game. Hubbard's already touched on it. You got to get some pass rush to help the secondary. But I think the secondary will be better. I think you're a lot better at linebacker in terms of quality depth. And to me, so much of it comes down to the defensive line. Can they be a middle of the pack SEC defense? Yes, but they really got to get some stepped up play from the trenches, in my opinion.
And last one goes to Loud Noises. How hard is Tennessee trying to get in with Jerron Dickey? And how do you like Tennessee's chances to at least get a visit from Robinson? Of course, he already came here unofficially back in May, but getting him back on campus.
I think Robinson will officially visit here this fall. I really do. I think he'll officially visit here this fall. I think he'll officially visit Georgia this fall. I think you'll see him take some trips. Dickey, there's communication there. Too early for me to say that Tennessee's going to be a real factor.
That'll do it here for this edition of the VolQuest Mailbag Podcast. Big thanks to you guys for submitting your questions like you do each and every week. Big thanks to Smoky Mountain Organics, East Tennessee's most trusted health and wellness store, focusing on natural products and organic remedies. 3 locations right here in East Tennessee, 1 in Knoxville, 8018 Kingston Pike. And continue to push the YouTube channel. A really strong push this week. It's looking great numbers-wise, so continue to support the site on YouTube, and of course all of our stuff on the front page, VolQuest.com, the general quarters, and a whole lot more.
And if you are interested in sponsoring anything at VolQuest, feel free to contact Brent Hubbs at VolQuest@AOL.com. We are always looking for people who would like to sponsor, whether it be the podcast, the Rocky Top Roundtable. Obviously, Craven Wings has become a great partner with the 2-Minute Drill.
And yes, that is AOL.com.
Yes, it is, and I will respond to you. So if you have any interest in partner up, we're always looking for new partners out there, and would love to have a conversation with you after you get through with your chuckles of AOL.com, because it is a working email address, as this staff will attest to. Right, gentlemen?
Breaking news right here on the VolQuest Podcast. AOL accounts still work.
Hubbard, did you get the new CD-ROM to upgrade?
I got 500 plus free hours when I put that CD-ROM in as well.
Awesome.
He's on Windows 95, baby.
That's Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, Rob Lewis. I'm Eric Kane. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Mailbag Podcast. We'll be back again next week here on the pod, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody.
You've been listening to the VolQuest Mailbag Podcast every week right here on VolQuest.